All right, let's settle it. Who is the most powerful character in all of fiction? We've all been in those internet debates for years. But what if the answer isn't some god-tier being or a galaxy buster? What if it's this little stick figure from an old Flash game? Yeah, today we're diving into a wild theory that claims exactly that.
I know. The whole idea just sounds bonkers, right? A single sword Routh from Stick War taking down the entire anime universe. Not just one hero, all of them. So how is that even possible? Is this whole thing just a meme that got out of hand, or is there some terrifyingly solid logic hiding underneath?
Okay, so the answer has nothing to do with who can punch harder or move faster. It all comes down to a fundamental clash of, well, universes. It's a battle between two completely different sets of rules. The logic of a video game versus the logic of an anime.
And this really gets to the core of it. See, anime logic, it runs on stuff we can kind of wrap our heads around, you know? Physics, energy, willpower, the power of friendship, all that good stuff. But game logic, that's just pure cold code. It's a world built on commands, pre-programmed animations, and most importantly, hitboxes. These two systems they're not compatible. And that incompatibility, that's where the Sword Wrath gets its unbelievable power.
The Sword Wrath's ultimate weapon is something it doesn't even have. It's the z-axis, the dimension of depth and volume. For a 2D character, basically a vector drawn on a screen, it just doesn't exist. If this little guy turns sideways, he literally vanishes from a 3D point of view. And that single, simple fact breaks almost every superpower in the anime world.
All right, let's put this crazy theory to the test. Round 1. We're starting with the heavy hitters, the characters who rely on brute force and mind-blowing energy attacks.
Let's start with the big one, Goku. Half of his fights are just him standing there, trying to sense their energy. So what's he gonna sense from a Sword Wrath? There's no ki, there's no soul, there's literally just a vector. He's looking for a ghost in a machine that was never there to begin with.
And that brings us to the most ridiculous part of this matchup. Goku can power up a Kamehameha that can vaporize a whole galaxy, right? But what happens when his target has 0 thickness? The beam just splits. It passes right by him on both sides. You can't blow up something that doesn't actually occupy any volume.
This is the perfect example of the logic clash. While Goku's spending 3 episodes screaming Kaioken and powering up, the Sword Wrath, just following its code, calmly walks through the whole light show and clips Goku's ankle for 20 damage. And let's be real, in our world, 20 damage to an ankle, that's a career-ending injury. Game over. Okay, what about Luffy? The man's made of rubber. But here's the thing, the Sword Wrath is a 2D line. It's a vector. You can't turn a line into rubber because a line has no volume to stretch. His entire power set is just useless from the get-go.
And here's the real kicker. Luffy is, a living being. He needs food, he gets tired. A Sword Wrath is just code. It can stand at the edge of the map perfectly still for 14 billion years, just waiting for that attack command. Luffy would literally starve to death while the Sword Wrath is still waiting for the player to click.
And yeah, what about Saitama, the One Punch Man himself? Well, it's the same impossible problem all over again. His punch might have infinite force, but how do you punch someone who has no z-axis? How do you connect with a target that has no physical depth? It is the ultimate paradox of power.
So, okay, the physical brawlers are out. But what about the really broken characters? The reality warpers? The ones who can bend space, time, and even concepts to their will? Let's up the ante.
This quote right here explains exactly why someone like Gojo Satoru is completely helpless. Everyone talks about his infinity, right? The idea that he creates infinite space between him and his opponent. But here's the catch. That rule only applies to things inside his universe. The Sword Wrath isn't traveling through the universe. He's a sprite being rendered on top of it. He'll just walk right through infinity because in his world it doesn't even register.
Now let's talk about Hajin, a being whose power is literally based on his own ego and desire, a guy who can overwrite the laws of the universe. The problem for him, a Sword Wrath has no ego to crush. It has no soul to manipulate. It has no desire to overwrite. It literally exists in a .swf file completely outside of Hajin's conceptual playground.
It really puts things into perspective, doesn't it? Hajun calls himself a god? Please. A Sword Wrath has already seen its god. It's that giant floating cursor in the sky telling it where to go. He is not going to be impressed by some dude sitting on a throne.
Okay, but this has to be the ultimate test. What about Pochita, Chainsaw Man?
The devil who can literally erase concepts from existence just by eating them. Surely that's checkmate, right?
Well, not quite. Think about it. To eat something, you have to chew it. And to chew it, your teeth need a 3D surface to actually grip onto. But a sword wrath, it has zero thickness. Trying to bite it would be like trying to eat a shadow with a fork. It would just slide between Pochita's teeth like a piece of indestructible dental floss.
And even if, by some miracle, Pochita managed to swallow one, you can't erase the concept of a sword wrath. Why? Because he's not the embodiment of a fear. He's a function in a program. He's unit_sword wrath. If one gets taken out, the game engine just sees the count go down and immediately spawns another one. He is, for all intents and purposes, infinite.
So, let's put it all together. When you actually place these two completely different rule sets side by side, the outcome becomes, well, terrifyingly clear.
I mean, this chart really says it all. Your typical anime hero, bound by physics, needs food and rest, and, can die. A sword wrath, it ignores physics, only needs a command from the player, and its combat is 100% efficient. Defeat doesn't even matter because there's 49 more right behind him. And get this, an anime hero fights worse when they're injured. A sword wrath fights perfectly fine at 1% health. Its logic is just better.
Which really leaves us with a wild question to think about. What is true power? Is it having the ability to shatter galaxies and rewrite the laws of the universe? Or is true, unbeatable power found in something so simple it can't even be affected by those rules in the first place?